Hello folks and welcome to the show again today with myself, Shane Stapleton, and as always with Michael Verney as well. You're a very happy man after last night. The Leinster under-20 final, Dublin 115, Offaly 118. I mean, those scenes at the end. This county couldn't be more in love with its team, and by God, you're tweeting. It's barely legal, the stuff you're tweeting where you're fawning over this team.
The supporters are in love and coming on at the end, or even before the end, which we'll get into in a minute. Listen, it probably wasn't a vintage Offaly performance, but I thought the box really clever. They did brilliant against the breeze. Like, by all accounts, it was a mad breeze in Portlaoise, and probably not one of the grounds that you'd associate with that type of a reel. There was nearly a gale going down one end. Offaly somehow ended up ahead at half time. Looked like Dublin did all the hurling the first 15 minutes. Then all of a sudden, we kind of got to grips with them. We started playing short, coming out from the back. We weren't just horsing ball down. Just a quick one in Dublin, though. Jesus, that Brendan Kenny. Like, I've seen him a couple of times. For a small, diminutive kind of player, like, he was bossing the game at times. He's brilliant and just mad to go forward. And it's mad to say, like, probably the two best lads in the field were the two smallest lads in the field. In him and Screeney, like, two brilliant players, and you know, if they fill out, they'll be outstanding senior hurlers. But we were in a good spot at half time. Shane Rigney's goal was the real pickpocket of a goal, bounced out of fullback's hand, and before you knew it, it was in the back of the net. And I didn't think we were going to pull away, but we kind of had them at arm's length without pulling away enough. But we just left them in it, and Conrock obviously got that. Like, it was the absolute bullet of a goal, and sure, there was mad scenes with a couple of minutes to play. Like, there were 5 or 6 deep around the edge of the field. It was crazy. Like, we'll go into it in a second.
It was not
mad.
It was a disgrace. No, I really do like Offaly and all that, joking aside, really do, and I don't think anyone meant to do it, but when you consider the Dublin players on the other side and they're still trying to get into a game. I'm not saying Offaly, the county, is a disgrace, but, you know, that was a disgrace the way that happened.
Well, it probably didn't do ourselves any favour as well on the pitch as well. Like, sure, when your fans are running onto the pitch and they think it's all over, you're bound to lose the run of yourself potentially as well.
It's far worse for Dublin. Come on now, let's call a spade a spade. It's way worse.
Yeah, I think it's not great on either side, but even... it was just mad, and like, by all accounts, I think the vast majority went out the one gate. How O'Moore Park or the Leinster Council or whoever didn't have sufficient stewarding in place for, like, you knew this was coming. You knew there was going to be pandemonium towards before the game, at half time, and you know, in the minutes at the end of the game. So I don't know how that wasn't set up in place. Listen, probably some parents probably have plenty to answer for, in the sense of how they're just letting their kids off.
Verney slates Offaly parents.
I definitely don't, but very hard to keep, very hard to rein in the excitement. But it was crazy, and it's okay to look back on it now and say they should have done this or they should have done that. But, like, realistically, that cannot happen again for the sake of something bad actually happening. It was a bizarre type of a scene. Offaly players and telling, you know, young lads and young ones to get back off the pitch because the game is still going on, and it very easily could have ended with Dublin getting a goal to draw. And I don't know what would have happened then as regards to people, etc. But I was just as for what happened between the white lines. Was you saw the couple of scores that Screeney got, sure, like, they're a joke, really. Like, it's just like, as my sister said to me last night, if I hadn't been right behind it, I wouldn't have believed what he did. Like, he'd no right to win the ball, flicks it over a fella's head, and then puts it over the bar from a tight angle. And I was just brilliant. And it was probably him, and it was Liam Hoare, I'd say, again, Rose High again, Cottle King. It was probably the lads that had been good in the last couple of games kind of shone bright again. And listen, there's a revenge mission, no matter who we play in the final. It's either yourselves or you know, a rematch of the minor final in the same venue, or it's Cork from last year. So, like, it's mouth-watering either way.
Yeah, I thought Dublin played well in huge spells of the game, but felt like once he got the goal, and especially the first half of the second half, maybe 20 minutes of the second half, just the shooting went a little bit awry. They had the chances, they just couldn't quite nail it over the bar. And I thought that save from Hoare, sorry, what's the goalie's name again? Is it Liam Hoare?
Liam Hoare, yeah.
Because it was a really good penalty from Dermot O'Dooling. Like,
I heard some people saying it wasn't a great penalty, and it was like,
it zipped up off the turf and was arcing away from the goalie. I thought it was an excellent save. But Dublin will be kicking themselves. And, you know, I played a few matches with the cornerback, Conor Groark, who was on Screeney last night. This was with the third team in Coola last year. You know, he's just coming on the senior scene, so he played a few games and he was a step ahead of everybody. But I thought he did really well as anybody can do. I thought he had a very good game, and he won a few balls against the head as well. So I give him a lot of credit too. I feel a little bit sorry for Dublin, because like, you look at the way their season has gone. They conceded 4 goals against Galway in that group game. 2 of the goals were like, lads fell asleep and just 21-yard frees were smacked into the back of net by Aaron Nyland. But they've come back, got to this final, got really, really close. And like, just back to the scenes at the end again, like we were reflected on Limerick against Clare last year. And like the very end, and it's almost like, well, the referee can't spoil the party now. This was the tone I think you might have had as well. The ref can't spoil the party now and not let, you know, give that free towards the very, very end, which Clare might have levelled with. There could have been an element of, we can't spoil the party here as well. Now, the referee did quite well, I think. Cayman, I can't remember the surname. But
a lot of Dublin people would disagree with you. But I thought Offaly tackled quite smartly, and maybe Dublin didn't tackle as smartly. And as well as that, like it was 40 seconds in, and like the Dubs potentially could have had a red card. It wasn't even a yellow card, but it was a head-high tackle that if it had happened at any other stage in the game, he potentially would have seen red. So they could have been down to 14 kind of straight away. So I actually thought he did okay. I honestly thought we bought a couple of frees a bit better than Dublin. And Brecon Kavanagh is the king at it. He's just very, very smart. They are frees, but against the breeze, it was able to slow down the game. And I thought we got James Matton on the ball really well too. He's one of our best ball players. He was the one that was charging out a lot of the time, and he always gives that lovely, sympathetic ball into a forward. But a lot of Dublin fans had their noses really out of joint at the referee. I'm obviously going to be a small bit biased, but I thought we played the referee a little bit better, if you get me.
Yeah, and we're going to have Leo O'Connor on the show. We probably should have told people that from the get-go.
Will he have a voice, do you reckon?
We'll see. We'll find out. By the way, if you want to get, there's going to be plenty of coverage of GA, obviously, here, but also patreon.com/OurGame. Bit of a deep dive into what might be wrong in Tipperary at the moment. I took no pleasure in writing that, but that's at patreon.com/OurGame.
People think, it's funny, Shane, I've had to do several negative Offaly pieces down through the years, and people think you get some sort of perverse enjoyment out of it. It's horrible. It's horrible, and all you want to be doing about your own county is writing positive things, and it's horrible. I remember doing a piece about, I think it was when Westmeath beat us in the week round robin back in the day, and people would be like, "Oh, you're turning out the old pony about Offaly again." I said, I'd love to never write about Offaly in a negative, like the more than you would about Tipp, but unfortunately the wheel turns. You're writing positive things now, I am, and I'll be writing negative things again, or have been. That's just the way it works. But yeah, I don't think you took any pleasure whatsoever doing that.
No, not at all. So have a look at that. It's kind of, a lot of the article is tracking the stepping stone from under 20 to senior in the last few years. And I know I've spoken a lot about how the 2018-19 generation weren't given that sort of light to grow in at senior level. But I've actually looked at from 2023 to 2024, inclusive, those 4 seasons. There's no point talking about this year just yet, because obviously those players are so young. But just looking at the fairly stark numbers and actual just the players that are currently after coming through. So that's worth having a look at. Michael, Cork against Tipp Friday night at the Gaelic grounds. That's going to be a bit of a cracker. Cork have made a couple of changes. Timmy Wilk is coming in, I think, for Tygo. Is it O'Connell or O'Connor? I have to double check that. But otherwise, there's plenty of Cork from last year that are used to winning. But Tipperary don't have Paddy McCormick. That's obviously a big loss. He done his thumb in. But they won the Waterford game without him previously. Won by, I think, 11 points against Cork earlier in this round robin. But from one game to the next, I've already talked about Dublin getting walloped by Galway and then beating them the next day out. It's just going to be a 50-50.
It is a 50-50. If I was to lean in a direction, I'd probably lean in the Cork direction. Just the fact that it's funny, just the fact that Tipp have beaten them already. It's hard to go and beat a team a second time, I would say. Particularly Cork were favourites before that game, whereas everybody's seen it as a 50-50 game now, and they obviously came through that Clare game in good style at the end. But it probably would be leaning towards Cork. It's funny. I listened to the TG4 or TG Catter commentary last night. Breen Tyres kept referring to the goal in the minor final, and he kept referring to it as Paddy Stapleton.
I noticed that,
yeah. Which I thought was funny. Paddy hadn't got too many goals. I was listening to it the first time. He's like, Paddy Stapleton got a goal in the game. And then he said it again. And I was like, okay, he's talking about Paddy McCormick. But funny, obviously, your brother Paddy's
involved. Anyway, connection.
Yeah, exactly. Your brother Paddy's obviously involved with the Tipp 20s on Friday night. And it's a huge game because having won the minor now, if you're able to win the 20s in the same year as the seniors aren't going well, it's all about hope, sure, a lot of the time. And people will take a hell of a lot of hope from that there's two very good teams coming.
Before we get Leo on, he'll be on in a few minutes. Is there any other topic you want to touch on first? Any maybe game this coming weekend that we should touch on?
Sure. Listen, there's so many different ones to touch on this weekend.
I thought you were going to go straight for Tipp Clare.
Yeah. So someone had a comment there saying that Tipp and Clare was on the Comedy Channel. people take great satisfaction in your misery. Pow says, Verney, can you see Waterford beating Limerick? The more I think of it, Waterford are going into this in form. I would just worry about their injuries. Like, there's a potential that Waterford could be without Prunty, who's 50-50 by all accounts, Neil Montgomery, Patrick Curran, who suffered a heavy head knock the last day, and Darragh Lyons. Like, that's four lads. It's your full back. And I was chatting to Big Dan about it the other day, and he was just saying there's not a hope in hell Clare would have got in for 4 goals if Conor Prunty was there, because he just doesn't veer away from the square. He's always that safe kind of place there. He's always a kind of a stopper there. And there's a potential that could be missing, like, I know 2 players only start in midfield, but there's potential to be missing 3 starting midfielders, you know. So maybe Jimmy Barron goes out to the middle of the field and that forces a rejig. I'd imagine Shane Bennett comes in, and if Prunty is out, Mark Fitz stays full back. But again, and as I talk about Limerick, you're going into the reserves before you start. So when you go into the reserves during the game, they're not going to be as strong as they would be as if everyone was fit. So, yeah, I do give them a chance, and they're playing great stuff. They've scored 225, 321, and 226 in 3 games. If they put up the colour of that, they will be very, very dangerous. Whether they can actually go and get a result is another story. You still will be veering towards Limerick, but Leo will be on, and Leo will have plenty on Limerick and where they are, and even injury wise, and who's fit and who's not.
It's mad that it's 2011 since last Waterford beat Limerick. Was that the day that Kevin Downs sort of announced himself, and then Milan got a late score to turn it?
2011.
Yeah,
Downs. We asked a loaded question to the Brick at a live show about Kevin Downs, and you thought Kevin Downs marked the Brick that day, and it turned out he marked Liam Lawler, he reckoned, that day. Anyway, we were trying to have a cut at him, and he threw what we thought were facts against us anyway.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I remember that one. Yeah. Listen, it's going to be, there's fascinating games all over. Like, I do think Tipp and Clare is a fascinating game as well for different reasons. Very like Tipp and Waterford last year. Like, you telling me there's nothing to play for? Oh, there's everything to play for.
Well, like, let's call a spade a spade. Like, there's absolute disaffection in Tipperary at the moment. People will not show up to this match. I can guarantee you that. There's going to be a very small Tipp crowd. Tipp are going to be outshouted at Semple Stadium 2 weeks in a row. There's been no championship win there for Tipperary in Munster since 2019. And obviously there was none there at all in 2020 and 2021. But it's still a long time waiting for a championship win there. And, you know, if this game turns out to be a disaster, I can't imagine that Liam Cahill would want to continue on. You know, good, bad, or indifferent, because people will start saying, okay, well, the final season with Waterford wasn't good. Now 2 seasons in a row with Tipperary the first one started out quite well, but 2 of them have sort of, you know, fizzled out badly. In the case of the first one has, you know, just gone down in flames really this time. And you know that I wanted this to work, but, you know, if this ends up being a disastrous performance, like, where do you go from there?
Yeah, I know it's very, very difficult to know where to go, because, like, when you look back at some of last year's performances and you look at, say, the Limerick game, like 26 points apiece, I think, probably should have got a win, potentially could have knocked Limerick out of the championship. like what's happened. It's very hard to put your finger on what's happened within that, you know, the space of time. And I know there's a kind of a narrative out there, oh, certain Tipp players are going to have to move on or whatever. And that's fine. But we're talking about 2, max 3 players. We're not talking about 7 or 8 players that generally like go down through the age profile of the team. And it's not an old team. I think people are hanging their hat on the fact that Noel McGrath has been there since 08 and Bonner's been there since, you know, 08 veering towards 09. Like, it's not an old team. And you could say about a rebuild, yeah, but it's like that would suggest that there's going to be a whole rake of guys going out the door and a whole rake of new guys going in the door. Like Barry Hogan's what, 25, Barrett's early 30s. 23. Barrett's early 30s. Fair enough. Mikey Breen's not old. Craig Morgan's not old. Brian O'Mara's not old. Jake Morris, Mark Keogh. What would you see is the new leader, Tynan, Willie Connors, maybe a bit older. But generally, what you see is the new leaders of this team, the Stakelums. They're not old guys or anything like that. So they're talking about a rebuild, but the rebuild has already started. And I would say it started even under Colin Bonner to some extent. And we're probably 3 years into the rebuild.
Let me put it this way, though. After the Limerick performance, Liam Cahill's words were, there'll have to be consequences. And the team didn't really change. Obviously, Kyle Baird came back from injury and he started, and Dara Stakelum has started the 2 games since. But there weren't really consequences. It's not like, do you remember when Pádraig Fanning, he had a very tough campaign in 2019? And obviously there was a couple of really heavy defeats. And then for the last game, he made, I think, 6 or 7 changes for the last round of games. So he dropped the likes of Noel Connors, he dropped Stephen O'Keefe, Kevin Moore and Brick, Austin Gleeson. So, you know, and not all of those players would have been overly old. He was just making statements. And maybe, I mean, I can't remember the exact performance of everybody. Maybe it was a case of, look, we're going to show you that it's not a case that no matter how bad you play, your name is big enough, you're going to start no matter what. And within Tipperary, there are a few players, mainstays, that it didn't seem to matter how poorly they had been playing, how bad their form had gone, you know, for whatever reason. And some of them have been brilliant players, but it didn't seem to matter what their form was like. They were going to start no matter what. So the consequences weren't there. So I think, you know, ultimately, if this doesn't work out and this ends up being his last game, a bit like maybe Pádraig Fanning, if you could go back and do it over, would you have made those changes a little bit earlier? And I know it's easy to kind of second guess it from the sideline, but I just wonder, like, the lack of consequences, did that feed into the disastrous performance against Cork? Because, you know, like, you've been there where other lads are starting and you're like, he's not going well. Okay, that's the 4th game in a row now, not going well, and I still can't get in. Like, if you're kind of down the panel a little bit and you're that person, it can lead to frustration.
Oh, big time.
And other players resting on their laurels or whatever it is. They know they're undroppable.
And then you have people onto you, and this is the fact, you have people onto you saying, what does X have on the manager? Because he cannot get out of the team, no matter how badly he plays. That seeps into you when you get more frustrated. And with due respect, there were days where I was probably sapping on the line at different times. You learn to get over it, and kind of, you have to do that to realize, okay, it's actually not about me, it's about the team or whatever. You do it once or twice, but like the mood, I'd say, from guys maybe wearing 26 to 36 that are trying to break into a match day squad and they don't seem to be able to get their chance. Like, I think Andrew Sullivan mentioned there, like Pat Ryan said that he kind of said there'd be, I don't know if he said there'd be changes after the Waterford game, but by God, there were changes. There were 6 changes, and it was a lot of different personnel. And we were looking at the team and saying, no, surely, like, Jeremy Mellerick will actually start. And it was somebody else, I think, that was dropped, and was saying, no, they will start. No, he made the 6, and that was it. And they've kind of fallen on a kind of a winning combination, not ever since, but they've definitely got more out of a hell of a lot of lads since, and they're playing more like a team since. So I don't know what Liam Cahill will do on Sunday, but you'd imagine there'll be a couple of potential debuts maybe handed out, or new faces maybe coming into the reckoning. Either that, or if he goes back to the same faces, then he goes back to the same faces, and that's what he's viewing on. He can't really view too much on training, but you have to judge it on the matches as well, and they can't have a team going to battle on Sunday where the white flag is going to be raised, because like Tipp were in that game up until half time and we're playing good stuff, and then all of a sudden there were a couple of things happened in the game, and I don't know whether lads down tools or whatever, but it was not a good effort in the second half. It was not the effort that people would associate with Tipp.
Well, do you know who did have a good effort in the second half? Leo O'Connor's Offaly under-20s. Leo, how are you today?
I'm good. Can't complain, lad.
We were wondering whether the voice was there. Leo, voice is still in good order, thank God.
Voice is still in good order, all right.
Hey, come here now. You went straight in with TJ Carter and you started throwing out the cliches. We're focusing on the next game and all this kind of crack now. Don't give me any of that. Don't give me any of that now for a minute. Just tell me what last night was like and what it felt like in the minutes after the final whistle.
I suppose it'd be like you after doing 5 in a row. Right. Trying to control you after doing 5 in a row. I know. Look, it was so special again. I don't know. Jesus Christ! Like what's coming the whole time down the line? The crowd last night, like honest to God, the amount of children. I think over 13,000 adults paid going into it, I believe. So I mean, like majority of the adults definitely brought one child. It's not 2. I know someone who brought 6. No, like it's just one for the ages, and the crowd keeps on giving, the Offaly crowd keep on giving, and the lads keep on giving, and that's the most important thing.
What was just talk to me about those the couple of minutes before the end of the game, Leo? Like, what are you thinking when it's just hit maybe the 61st minute? You know there's supposed to be 3 minutes, and I don't know how many thousand people go onto the pitch. Like, it was a crazy scenario. I was kind of thinking, Jesus, lads, if you get off the pitch, the last thing we want is a replay or a refixture or anything like that.
Yeah, it was just one of those funny moments. But I tell you, the funniest part about it was for me, right? Because Adam was gone down injured with a small bit of, he got a little bit of a dead leg and a bit of a scrape down the inside of his leg, right? And I had got it on my ear that Adam was in a small little bit of bother, and I turned around to call one of the subs like to come on. And when I turned around back out onto the field, all I could see was mass crowds. And I went, is it blown up? What's after happening? And next thing I looked at the clock and I went, there's only 60 minutes, 30 seconds or something was on it. And I went, just, what's going on? Next thing I could see the fourth official. And next thing I saw 3 or 4 guards running, trying to get children off the field. And I was going, right, okay. Everyone thought there was, the ball went wide, I think, at that stage, and everyone thought the game was over. The referee blew the ball wide, and next thing, there was that minute, I suppose, 40 seconds of just trying to get everyone back off the field. And then, the second pitch invasion, on the next ball, there's another pitch invasion. And then the goal happened, and it was pucked out, the ball came down, and I went, right, here we go. Right, and I was just, Jesus, I was going, you know, what next? And next thing, when we got the ball up the other end of the field, like it was just electric. And to see the crowds then coming again for the third time, you're scratching your head going, it like 3 minutes is 3 minutes. And we started roaring, shouting then for the fourth official, you know, 3 minutes are up. And he goes, they're giving it another minute and a half. And I went, okay, grand. So it was just one of those situations where mayhem took place. How you could describe it.
And when Conrock blasted that ball into the back of the net, like brilliant goal, were you thinking, oh, you know, you were 6 up and you were thinking, geez, this could slip from us?
Like, don't get me wrong, 2022 came straight into my mind straight away. And particularly, like, because I was full sure that Donald went up brilliantly, caught the ball, and just when he landed on the ground, I suppose the vibration landed on the ground, the ball slipped out of his hand and popped into Conrock's hand, and he sticks it in the back of the net, a bullet out of nowhere. No one had any chance to recover, and it just came straight through, and we were going, right, here we go. And then another pitch invasion, got him off the field again. There was a young fella saying he was more than 7 or 8 years of age running on, and it had got greasy at that stage. There had to be a small little squibble of rain, and he tried to stop to come off, and he landed on his backside, full flat in front of us, and we didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or what to do. What was happening? It was just one of those situations, and it only happens in the GA.
Can I just ask you, Leo, about the GA is so unique, like the outpouring of emotion. Like I don't know if there's anything else that creates the emotion and the outpouring of, like, you must have got so many different hugs, tears, whatever after. Like there's nothing like it creating that outpouring. I had my brother on to me from New Zealand this morning, half crying when he heard the result and that type of thing. There's nothing else can create that type of emotion or outpouring of emotion.
No, it's that parochialism, and I suppose within every county, there's a club in every parish, and there's so much pride in that, and that's what we're all built around. I think that's what makes us unique, I suppose, more than anything else. It's the pride in the parish, and then when you put on a county jersey, and like to the level that Offaly have been starred with success up to 2022, and like there's been massive progress made over the last 2-3 years. So from that point of view, we're extremely proud of the lads. And let's be honest about it, the way they've carried themselves as well. Like this is their third All Ireland in 3 years. Like I think there's 8 of the team that started in the All Ireland final in 2022 played last night. There's 9 of the team underage next year again. And when you throw in Dan Ravenhill on top of that, that's out with long-term injury. It's just one of those unique occasions. And I referred to this last year, and I keep referring to it. But the most important thing is development. And I know you'll say that we're sitting on the fence here saying, like, okay, there's an All-Ireland there to be won, and we've got to go out and give it 300%. And this team, when we spoke last night inside dressing room, that was the one major factor that we did speak about, is we want to win in All Ireland. And people was even last night, like 1 or 2 people said, God, it's brilliant, you're there again, and you're probably there ahead 12 months of your time. When you get to All Irelands, they're there to be won, and you've got to take your chances when they come along, because there's no guarantee that you get back there the following year. Because you see them at Dublin, like David Purcell was a minor last year, Conor Newton was a minor last year, and they've all pushed on and really developed this year. You can see it last night in their hurling. They were, that was a very, very good Dublin hurling team last night, and they'll have gained from the whole experience last night.
How do you keep, you look at the experience of that Limerick 3 in a row under 21 team back 20 years ago at this stage. But how do you look at these players and ensure that, they stay grounded and stay doing all the things they need to do and stay, eating the protein, the creatine, whatever it requires so that they can progress to the next level? Because it would, when you have that sort of crowd following you, and no doubt they're sort of mini stars within their local area, it must be very hard to keep the 2 feet in the ground.
Without shadow of a doubt, it's very, very hard to keep the 2 feet in the ground, especially when you've nights like last night. But the most important thing is they're back in tonight. They're training tonight. The guys that didn't play last night, and some of the subs that wasn't used last night, they'll have a hard training session tonight. There's positions available and that are still available on that team going into an All Ireland final, and it's up to those guys. As I said tonight, it's up to those guys to really step up and take control of the situation themselves and put themselves in the window to be part of number 1, part of 24, and number 2, to be part of a team. Like, we have a 37-man panel. There's 6 of those on the senior hurling panel, which credit to both Johnny Kelly and everyone that's involved in the situation, that we've managed to through to it. All the pressure's off now as regards that, because we're out Saturday week, and then they're out the following week. So from that point of view, it's very easy managed for the next 2 weeks, and that's the way it's been dealt with all along. We've taken it game by game, but there's just that parochialism, the county jersey, and it's that hunger for success above an Offaly, and in a certain way, it has put them as, we'll call them local celebrities, as we'll say, but in another way, within the group, they're a very, very genuine and honest bunch of players. You can't ask for more out of them. Every time that we do go to the well, they always turn up. And that's the honesty, I suppose, that's associated with the county. And then when you have a character like Johnny Pilkington aside in the middle of it all, Johnny has his own way. Johnny's very unique. And it's
the man before, he definitely is some character.
Like, we all bounce off each other, and this year we've, like, Hughie Hannon has been there for the last 2 or 3 years with us, and Johnny has been there for the last 2 or 3 years, and Tony Gleeson has come in this year from Burgess and Tipperary, and that has brought a different dimension to things. So what we're trying to do the whole time is try and keep the thing mixed up, in that we're bringing in new experiences the whole time to the lads and keeping them grounded and looking at from different angles. The amount of video analysis, I suppose, that we have really done this year. There's a lad, Paul Ryan, that's there from Derry as well. Like, they've brought in a completely new dimension. Granted, we did video analysis last year, but we didn't probably go into the depth that we've gone into this year. And we've looked at everything, the whole GPS report system that we have in place, everything. Like, it's just gone to a different level. And that's something that we really had to push on with the whole time. So it's bringing that, and I suppose bringing new techniques and new experiences for these players that has kept them so grounded and working hard.
Johnny definitely is a unique character, Leo. He managed us before for a couple of years, and he'd be getting players' opinions on things. And Johnny being Johnny, he asked for an opinion on something, and someone said something, and it was not controversial or whatever. But Johnny goes, "Yeah, listen, I agree with you 100% to an extent." And then he goes off and justifies his own point and rips up what the previous person said. And even just hearing Dan say that Johnny keeps the group grounded. Because Johnny, you need different lads within a group that offer different things. Just two lads I want to just ask you about. Can you just talk to me about Liam Hoare, Leo? I was, following the Offaly schools run last year. He obviously wasn't involved. He was, he was under pressure health-wise at the time. Can you just talk to me about where he's come from to where he is now? It's a phenomenal story for a young fella.
It's a phenomenal story, and I suppose if there's anyone an ambassador for Offaly, what he's come through. We'll say January 2022, going into 2023, New Year's Eve, I got a phone call from his father to say that Liam had been sent for tests and that it would take roughly 10 to 12 days for results to come back. Results came back. His father rang me 4 days later with the unfortunate story. And Liam started his treatment from there. And 10, 11 months later, he has come out the other side of it. And during that whole period, and I would particularly say to the whole hurling world, players of the past that have been affected by illness really stepped up and spoke to Liam at various different stages. And it was a credit to it, and I call it the GA world, the GA fraternity, the way that they there was cards, phone calls, there was a lot done, and we worked Liam. The most important thing that we felt during the whole period of time for the 10, 11 months with Liam was that we kept him involved. Even going through all the treatment, we kept Liam involved. It's a very, very unique story for the lad. And to be the way he is now, last week he saved the penalty off his right, and last night he saved the penalty off his left. The one off the right last week was drilled to the right hand corner, and the one at the left, at his left hand side last night, was bounced off the ground. That's very, very unique. We have really, I suppose, changed the shape of Liam. Liam was a tall, scrawny young fella. He's a very broad, strong young fella now across the hips. His puck out strategy, we've really worked hard on that with him as well. And I'm emphasising all this because it's the simple reason of the fact that the lad too has taken everything on board. He's doing his leaving cert this year, and possibly going into college next year, hopefully all going well. And he has actually sailed through all this, and I cannot speak highly enough of the guy. I cannot speak highly enough of his family, the way that they dealt with it. I can only imagine what way any parent would be. I have children at home, and if I got a phone call like they got, I can only imagine. And last year below Nolan Park, when he went up and accepted the cup on behalf of the combined schools team, it was a credit to himself because he was in the mid. That was he was only 3 months in at that stage. Nothing was certain at that stage. But look, he has come out the other side of it. He's a joy to be around. As I said, what I would term, he's an absolute gentleman, and mentally has become very, very strong. And to come through what he's come through over that 10, 11 month period. That's all I can say about it, Mike.
Savage, yeah. And even, as you say, he was kept within the group, and he went up and accepted the trophy, I think, with one of the Cavanaghs that day in Nolan Park, which was a lovely touch. Shane?
Yeah, no, listen, every one of them, all the lads on that panel, they all bought in around it because we emphasised it. There wasn't very little said about it, but everyone knew the situation, and we kept Liam on the happy side of it. He was always in with a smile on his face every night, and the night he'd come to me and say, "Look, I won't be here next Thursday night. I won't be here Friday. I'm going for treatment." And you go, "Okay, Liam, no problem. Sure, I'll see you Saturday. I'll see you Sunday, whatever the case will be." And he was in, and we were worried about him in case he was suffering sickness and stuff, after the treatment. But he came through it with flying colours. And it's just one of those situations, and it's I suppose it brings the whole human touch to where we are, Michael, and that's what's kept the lads grounded as well. And we, not that we play in it or anything, no, we don't, but it's just one of the stories where it's a success story in every sense of the word, where a young lad who got sick, got a diagnosis, did his 10 months of treatment, and came back, and like, as far as I know, right this minute, we are 100%, free what was there. And in our terms, that's the major story for us. And every time that Liam comes in, as I said, smile in his face, leaves with a smile in his face, and he's become quite a character around the place. Even last year, like small things, giving him hurleys, getting new goalkeepers hurleys for him. His club as well have been absolutely immense. Carrigan Riverstone have been absolutely brilliant to him. He didn't start in the championship with him, but as the year went on, he got his place back, and they gave him every support as well. Like, I can't speak highly enough of the whole GA community in Offaly. And as I said, on the greater GA fraternity, it was a massive, massive, massive story for what we did and what they did for him as well.
Leo, I was going to ask you about the standard overall in under 20 this year. And like, obviously, I'd be watching the Dublin scene pretty closely, and there's a lot of players that I'd be very impressed with there. But like, across the board, Tipperary against Cork tomorrow night. Obviously, you're not going to be giving away anything, and rightly so. But like, that should be a cracking game. But like, what do you reckon the standard is like this year?
Standards, I would say the standard is very, very high again this year. I thought last year was particularly high, to be quite honest. Like the Cork team that beat us in the final were a very, very good team. Like, there was a lot of teams knocking around the place last year. I thought Galway were particularly good. Last year we had a humdinger with Galway above in Tullamore, and I think that was one of the matches in 2023 that really pushed on, gave us the confidence. This year, like, we played a Kilkenny team last Wednesday week. It was absolutely. I can only describe them as a senior hurling team playing under 20. They were big, strong, physical guys, worked really hard. There was a rawness attached to them, typical Kilkenny. But over the period of time, I think over the last 2 or 3 years, and I extend this into the senior hurling championship at the moment as well that's going on. Hurling is in a very, very good place. I don't think there's too much wrong with it, and I just think at times that we go tinkering with it for the sake of tinkering with it, and change. I don't think any of us need the amount of change that's needed, that people are saying that's needed in hurling. I just think that the tackle situation probably needs to be addressed. And it's very, very hard for referees to be refereeing these games now, because the pace that the game has been played at. Players are extremely fit at under 20. Minor level, they're not really developed, I suppose, at under 17. They're only kids coming out with a small little bit of maturity, those that mature early enough. But under 20 level, you see they were a physically strong Dublin team last night. As I mentioned, Kilkenny, you look at Cork last year, and Galway this year were a very, very strong physically team as well. And the standard is, everyone is pushing on. Everyone wants to develop, because when they look at the Limerick model that's there, over a 10-year period where Limerick have developed and become, the 5 All-Irelands in 6 years and going for 5 in a row this year. That's what everyone looks at. Everyone wants to know what the next person is doing, what the next county is doing. So from that point of view, it's absolutely immense. And I think that overall, the standard is very, very good at the moment, Shane.
What would you do about the tackling, though? Because there's no obvious interpretation, it is totally down to interpretation, so it's not very clear. What would you like to change about it?
I just think the head-high tackle is the danger one. That is the danger one, because there's no winner in the situation. Players, there are innocuous tackles that go in, and players get the hand rides up, because when the player that's been tackled, if the hand goes in over his hands, it comes up, and it automatically comes up around the helmet, and it looks a lot uglier than what it is. But I just think that any tackle that goes over shoulder, head high, up around the head, I just think is blown straight away, because it has to be, because there's the risk of concussion. Donald Shirley got a fairly robust tackle last night after about a minute of the match, and he was just down for a couple of seconds, and it's just, you have got to give the players the opportunity. I don't agree with the idea as well, to be quite honest, of when a player takes off his helmet now off the field. on the field that he has to leave the field and come back on, because the senior hurling championship this year I've seen it where players have had to leave the field for basically 30 seconds, a minute, and a team is down to 14 players. You know, from that point of view, it's just that it's that particular element of it that there's so much going on. And where, like me as a manager, at times when a player like semi-final against Kilkenny Leinster Championship, Colin Spain got 5 stitches down the side of his ear, and we didn't know. And he came off, and I said to him, like I says, "You all right?" Next thing I saw the blood, and he went, or the lad that was looking after him, Collie Malone, was looking after him. Collie said, "No, Leo, this guy's in trouble." And he goes, "No, I'm not. I'm fine. Tape it up. We'll go again." But like, the guy got 5 stitches in his ear. You know what I mean? From a completely innocuous tackle. It's the helmets as well, though, is making it a lot worse. Players are trying to lighten the load on the helmet the whole time, and they mightn't be using the amount of padding inside that was used years ago. There's all small little mitigating factors involved in this, Shane, that players are always trying to get the extra benefit, trying to get the extra yard, whatever the case may be, trying to get the benefits of that. So from that point of view, you know, it's just a very grey area, so I suppose is the word I'd use to describe what's happening. But certainly, I think anything above the head needs to be dealt with straight away.
How do you feel about your own county, Limerick, this weekend going in against Waterford? Because it's somewhat on a knife edge. I'll bring up the tables here, and the permutations that have been done by Dennis Hurley. But you might just talk to us about Limerick and Waterford heading into this weekend.
I just think Limerick's own situation is in completely their own hands. Limerick go out and win. End of story. That's what Limerick have to do. And I just think that the mentality of John Coyley, the mentality of that Limerick team, I think that's what they will do. I think Waterford are putting up huge scores, the amount of points they're scoring, and they're not panicking. That's the one thing I noticed about Waterford this year. They're not actually panicking. They had a very good result against Cork, I suppose, in the first round of the championship. They'll be disappointed with the one last weekend, but down here in Ennis, it's just that level of hurling has really gone to a different level. And as I mentioned, the amount of high scores that Waterford are doing, and certainly Cork after the Limerick game, the confidence that whole situation gave to Cork has lifted them to a different level completely. Plus the fact that you have Alan Connolly and like you have young Hayes thrown aside in the full forward line now with Patrick Horgan. It is taking the weight of burden off Patrick Horgan, I think, a certain amount, because over the last number of years, he's been taking a lot of responsibility himself to get goals for Cork. And like the whole championship thing has gone to really Cork have entered it. They should have probably entered it, the championship, from the very first round, but it's only in their last 2 games they put their hand up and gone, this is the way it is, and we're here now. And look, as we said, you see them all there, you see all the permutations. There's a hell of a lot of permutations attached to it. Clare, Clare are going to, I think Clare will get over the line. I think Liam Cahill has to go for broke. I think he has to throw in his new talent, throw in players that he's probably not 100% certain about, but there's no better way to find out this weekend. They're out of the championship, they're playing Clare, they have a free hand. Give it a go, see where it takes us. And certainly, whether he starts the likes of Noel McGrath's or the Patrick Bonner-Mahers, me personally, I think Liam should throw the younger lads in, and then get to a certain point in the game at the weekend and just find out where you are. And then you can introduce to Noel Mahers that cuteness, the Bonners, that will to win, I suppose, that intensity that they bring to the situation. Look, it's on a knife edge, lads, to be quite honest. But certainly, I just think that Limerick situation, my own county, I know they only know one way, and that's get out and win it. And like, it's going to be a huge occasion on Sunday inside the Gaelic grounds.
Where do you think they're at, Leo? Like talking Mike Casey been back, Darragh Donovan been back. Very little hurling played by the two of them probably in the last maybe 6 or 8 weeks. No one's really sure about Declan Hannon. We won't know that until the 2026 is announced, and Peter Casey's out as well. They're not playing, you'd say, with the same kind of consistency throughout a game. Obviously, opened up against Cork in the first half, very good in the second half. Opened up against Clare for 55 minutes, very good in the last 20. I don't know if I'd read too much into the Tipp game. So where do you think they're at?
Honestly, I just think that Limerick get a new lease of life once they get to Croke Park. And I think that's the most important thing for Limerick this weekend, is to get over the line against Waterford, get out. It's do or die. It's all Munster championships now at this stage. The match really has to take on a new lease of life, because Waterford are in with a shout as well. Where Limerick are at, I like. Okay, they definitely need Mike Casey back in the full back line, because Shawnee Finn has the hamstring injury. Dermot Burns hasn't been blown and all, hasn't blown blown a full gasket yet this year. Gone out and attacked it. I think he's played well within himself. Declan has been very, very consistent. Kyle has been absolutely immense, I think. And that's where Limerick's main dominance over the last number of years has come from, their half-back line. Burnsy delivers unbelievable ball up the field, that diagonal ball that he delivers up the field. And certainly, as we all know, when he gets the opportunity to come up to midfield and pop points over the bar, I mean, like, Burnsy, I think, the last number of years, he's probably one of their top scorers from play. And that's only from coming up the field. And, like, I just think that Limerick need to get back that little bit of confidence. One of the most important issues has been Dara O'Donovan. The lack of Dara O'Donovan in that middle of the field. Dara is the master of the short ball. And like, how many times you've seen Dara burst into tackles, going forward, turn around, popping the ball off to Dermot Burns and giving him that extra 3 or 4 seconds on the ball to steady himself and bang it over the bar. It's just, they're small little things. The most noticeable thing, though, that will go on this year as we go further in the championship, please God, Limerick get over the line on Sunday, I think is going to be the lack of Peter Casey. He's lack of experience, that guy. He always gets into positions, always scores, always contributes, especially when they needed him. There's always that 2 or 3 point, that the game changers. If you don't mind me saying so, a little bit like what Adam brought last night after we got the goal last night. The ball went down the wing, Dublin cornerback spilled it, Screeney picks it up, goes down the outside, 21-yard line, 14-yard, banged it over the bar. The one in the second half, the exact same thing. Peter Casey has that ability, and there's very little forwards around of that prowess that can close a game out for you the way those guys do. Even when Peter's accident that happened with against.
I think we've lost Leo there for a second. Oh, maybe he's just coming back in. Sorry, I think we lost him for a second. Leo, fire ahead.
No, but John's just saying about Peter's point against the accident against Tipp. Peter, he had the opportunity to bang the ball over the bar, but saw the goal opportunities on, went for the killed off the game there and then. So I just think Limerick, as they go on, they're gonna miss Peter Casey big time. Adam English is coming in. Aidan O'Connor came in against Cork and got a great point. I just think that these are guys now that John is going to have to start throwing in with 10-15 minutes to go on. Like, even Adam might even start the weekend, because I think Waterford will suit Adam, because it's a running game that Waterford play from their half-back line. And I just think that Adam will get the space around the middle of the field as well, half forward, and no better boy to punish you, like we saw against Tipp when he came on 4 or 5 possessions, 4 points in play. It was immense. But these are the things that Limerick can only answer themselves, and that hunger, and some people are saying that it may not be there. I just think the hunger is there greater than ever. I just think there's maybe a little bit of too much pressure they've put on themselves to create that little bit of history of the 5 in a row. And of prime importance is the result on Sunday, get over the line and get themselves back in the Munster final.
But I just wonder, Leo, like, I don't think the hunger is in question. I don't think their quality as hurlers is in question. But I do wonder sometimes, are they physically creaking a little bit? Because you do see, like, a lot of players missed a lot of game time in the league. And then you see Declan Hannon, brilliant as he is, has to come off towards the end. A couple of times Keane Lynch, open running, out around the field. He's getting overturned. He's ending up on his backside at times. Still a brilliant player, don't get me wrong. But just the amount of injuries and a few players not looking totally themselves, I just wonder physically, are they creaking just a little?
It's like everything else, Shane, when you're at that level for the last 6 years, that the level they're performing, training 2-3 nights a week, it's bound to take an effect. I think more than anything else, I think it's the mental effect that, and that's what I'm slightly referring to as the pressure that Limerick are putting on themselves. I just don't think that Limerick finished the game against Cork particularly well. It went on a penalty decision that changed the whole perspective of the championship. It brought Cork back into a championship. But overall, I just think that it's more the mentality, the pressure of that, of creating the 5 in a row. And fingers crossed that, and I know Waterford, look, no better boy than Davy. They'll turn up and they'll work really, really hard. The likes of Calum Lyons and these guys, they're superb hurlers, and they'll bring up. They have nothing to lose. Come up and perform. Like, imagine if it's a draw.
It's not a mad one though, Leo. Like, it's not a mad one. Like, you think if Limerick survive, I'd be surprised if they're not back in an All-Ireland final. If Cork stay alive after this weekend, the season
could be called
favourites. Oh yeah, like, and I was chatting to John Myler yesterday. He said if Cork survive this weekend, they'll get to an All-Ireland final, and he'd have them ranked number 2 in the country. It's funny, like, there's so much riding on this, and Davy has the chance to completely rip it all up if they're able to deliver a performance, if they can just push on a small bit more than what they've produced so far, because they've been brilliant so far. They're not stuttering into this game. They are flying into this game. They had no right to be even in the Clare game after conceding 4 goals.
More importantly, Mike, they've good players back to tie the Burkas. They've all them that they didn't have last year. You know what I mean? And Waterford were very, very close last year, surprising Tipp below Thurles. And there's small things that, like, I would love to have Dan Ravenhill going into an All-Ireland semi-final. I don't have him. But, like, when you see the effects of the likes of Ty de Burka coming back, steadying the ship back there in that Waterford defence, and they haven't really... I know, like, there's been a lot of high-end scoring, high shootouts, we'll call them, in the Munster Championship this year. But certainly Waterford are shooting the lights out too, 26, 27, 28 points the whole time. And they're being very, very consistent. And the other thing that I fear, right, going into Sunday, Dessie Hutchinson hasn't really had an outstanding game this year. And when Dessie Hutchinson hits the high notes, as we'll call them, and gets on that scoreboard and gets confidence level up, Waterford will be a threat to anyone. And I just hope that it's not Sunday against Limerick.
So just to jump onto the other game again, Clare against Tipperary, or Tipperary against Clare, even though it'll feel like a home game for the banner, which I'm fairly terrified about. But Leo, Tipperary have won 3 of the last 4 championship matches against Clare, and it's 11-3 since 2000. So no matter what's going on, and Tipperary haven't been brilliant every single year since 2000, they'll always feel like they can beat Clare.
No doubt about that, but it's the mental damage that's been done now. Like, they took a ship and, like, they kind of got a nice little trimming against Limerick now, right? And they took a nice trimming last week. They were totally deflated. And I suppose from Liam's point of view, it's head-wrecking because he's scratching his head. He'll know they'll have been training well, and I know Tipp have trained really, really hard this year. And is it a case in point where, Liam, you're out of the championship and less might be more this week, where you're going to have less emphasis, you're getting them right. There's a 7-day turnaround, and maybe Tipp hit the high notes. The strength comes back into them, momentum swings, and that they've nothing to lose, and they'll go out and take on Clare. But I think Clare are a very, very good team. I just think Clare have been humming along. They had Limerick on the rack. 1 or 2 things went wrong. Limerick got to run them, came back in and got over the line. And then when you see Clare, like, if the ball had gone wide last week, would Cork be in the championship now? That's 65. There's a lot, like, it's tiny margins now, lads, that has come down to, from that point of view. And, like, it's one for the ages, but I certainly think that Clare are going to beat Tipp on Sunday. I can't see it happening. I just think that, Liam is going to have to go back to the drawing board, throw in the new young lads, I think, and what we call bring on the finishers then to finish out the game, and hopefully that they're still in the game, that they're still close enough, Tipper still close enough to have a shot, to have a goal.
Verney, you'll be dancing all over Tipperary's grave this weekend, of course.
I won't.
No, I won't.
He was talking about me, Leo. Now, to be fair, you won't. You're living in Tipper, yeah?
I'm living in Newport, yeah.
You have to be very careful.
No, I definitely didn't say you would be dancing, laughing at us, Leo. This man, of course, though, he loves when Tipperary don't go well.
I actually don't. And there was a comment came in on Monday, and it described it well. Brian Cody said that Hurling needs Limerick, and Hurling actually does need Tipperary. It needs everybody strong. I actually don't take that much satisfaction. As I said to you, Shane, I like Tip to be very competitive, but suffering heartbreak at the latter end of the championship rather than this type of heartbreak, which is completely different and not good for the game.
Yeah, people aren't even bothering to slag us at the moment.
I suppose, Shane, the hardest part about last Sunday was the simple fact that Cork had a home game at Thurles.
Yeah. I was 8 or 9 to 1. I mean, I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
I just actually couldn't believe it. No, when I looked at it, I went, "Oh my god!" She may as well have gone down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh and played it.
Yeah, I know. It was awful.
You know, more Tip people would have probably gone down to Páirc Uí Chaoimh for a day out than they turned up in Thurles, and that's the simple fact of it. It's
the depressing fact of it. But Leo, I wanted to ask you about Keith Rossiter, who you came up against last year with the under-20. Yeah. Obviously, they have a mega game this weekend against Kilkenny, more or less winner takes all. We know there's permutations and all that, but everything's on the line. What was it like coming up against him? Like, would you consider him a astute, fired up character? Could you just talk to us about him?
I just thought Keith was a very calm character in the line out, to be quite honest. I was highly impressed with him. He was very calculated, and I certainly know that they did an awful lot of work on us as well last year, but it was a very, very calculated performance on the line, and I just think they have really good guys. Keith having played the game, a lot of it, knows Wexford inside out, and that's one of the most important things, I think, is the traditions that's attached to it. But certainly very astute when it came to tactics, you know, dropped off at times and knew when to drop off. And I just think that, like, has anyone ever got more out of each end than what Keith Rossiter has? You know, and that comes from respect. The simple fact that the two of them probably played together, haven't played together. You know, that respect that's there the whole time, being from, like, knowing each other so well, I suppose, really. And you can't buy that. And that's the most important thing. And I just think that Keith is really improving this Wexford outfit. At times, and I will turn around and say, at times you'll be scratching your head going, just particularly during the National Hurling League, why they haven't performed to the maximum of their ability. And it's just, teams have those days, but they're getting less and less frequent with Wexford. They're getting more consistent. And I think that's what Keith has really brought it to the table this year. And as I said, very cool, calm, collected guy in the sideline. Couldn't be but impressed with him. And a terrible, genuine GA guy, which is more important.
Michael?
Yeah, no, listen, Leo, I know you're probably under pressure there, so thanks very much for jumping on. And sure, listen, with a bit of luck, we might have you on after an All-Ireland final. Success with a bit of luck.
Hopefully before the McDonagh Cup final, Mike. That you know, that we get back up there. That's the most important thing. Yeah. Thanks a million, boys.
Thanks a million, Leo. Appreciate
it. Thanks very much. Yeah, brilliant to have Leo on there and get his insights. And what an occasion they had last night. But you're Kilkenny now. They're up against it against Wexford this weekend. Or do you feel like they're going to find a way through as they generally do in the Leinster Championship?
They're actually not. You know, do you realise the Leinster permutations are different than the Munster ones? Kilkenny are true no matter what.
All right.
Yeah, because the Leinster score difference, they're using a different score difference than in Munster. So if you end up in a tie with three teams, they're using the score difference between the games between those three teams rather than as a whole. So there's been a bit of a mix up there. And like, I know from even chatting lads involved in management teams that they weren't aware of that until they weren't aware of that even in Parnell Park the other night. So Kilkenny are true regardless. It's just a matter of whether they're true in third, second, or first. So there's probably a bit of pressure off in that regard. Last Saturday was when they had to get the result because it was so messy had they not, and even a draw would have been very, very messy as well. Like they have to have a few wrongs to right against Wexford as well. Wexford laid waste to them in Nolan Park 2 years ago. What I would regard as the worst championship performance under Brian Cody. Do you remember that?
Come on, we had a few All-Ireland finals against Tipperary as well.
Okay, definitely some of the worst Leinster championship performances anyway. And obviously they went down.
I didn't think I'd get a chance to have a pop at anyone today, but
I usually try to leave a bit of an opening every now and then. It's just a matter of whether you take it. I give you the yard. It's a matter of whether you take the yard or not. And obviously they were beaten last year as well, so like Kilkenny must be sick of the sight of Wexford a small bit. Like looking at Wexford, they must be scratching their heads looking at Wexford going up to Corrigan Park or Offaly drawn with Wexford in Division 1 and thinking, like, how are they beating us and they're drawing or losing to, you know, if you're to do a power rankings, seriously inferior teams. But like Wexford have so much to play for yet again. Wexford had everything to play for in the fixture last year, did everything to play for in the fixture the year before. Kilkenny have, you could say, less to play for on paper, but they've a hell of a lot to be playing for as well. I think it's a really interesting game. I think Kilkenny are going to want to book their Leinster final place. They're going to want to go through the front door again. They're going to want the shot at doing 5 in a row, and then the flip of that, you've Wexford who have played champagne stuff since the Antrim game, like seriously impressive. Blew Galway away in the second half and left absolutely zero element of doubt against Carlow last day. And as Leo said there, like Lee Chin is playing. Lee Chin is one of the best hurlers in the country at the minute and is delivering, you know, 4 or 5 from play nearly every day, and his frees are up to a really high level as well. He's got Rory O'Connor fit. He's kept him fit. He's got Conor Mack back fit. He had 2-3 from play the last day. Diarmuid O'Keefe, by all accounts, could feature this weekend or could be in the match day 26. And if not this weekend, if they stay in, he will feature going forward. So everything looks like it's kind of fallen into place, but they do need a result this weekend to make. They can't be relying on, you know, they can't be relying on others doing them favours or anything like that.
Yeah, some good comments here. Joseph Nash, Kilkenny will be foaming at the mouth for Wexford. Martin Furlong, Popeye has spinach. Wexford have decided the Kilkenny jersey. Adrian McGrath wants us through a power rankings, lads. Great to see where it's at Sunday evening. Thank God I wasn't asked through one before the before the Cork game, because that wouldn't be looking great. No, I don't think we've time for one today, but we might try and do one very soon. And there's also a comment about doing top 5 hurlers in Ireland right now. We'll try and do that soon. When things slow down a small bit and there's slightly fewer games. William Brosnan, what did Verney think of Kerry hurler Luke Crowley missing the Offaly game as a result of the under-20 final schedules is so tight now? And I had him with the UCD freshers this year. It's a real shame he wasn't playing.
I thought that was a joke. That under-20 football final was down to be played on the Saturday originally, and it moved to the Sunday. I'm not sure who got it moved or whether it was one or both counties got it moved, but the fact that the 2 games, like the McDonagh Cup game against Offaly, which was a glorified All-Ireland semi-final, essentially, it was the All-Ireland B semi-final, shall we say, was been fixed at the same time, the same day, in Tullamore as the under-20 final, which was been played in Portlaoise at the exact same time. Gave the young fella no chance whatsoever. And by all accounts, hurling is his number 1, but it's an awful choice to have to make for a young fella as well.
Yeah, do you know, I'm looking at Kilkenny Wexford here in some of the most recent games. And like last year, they had a ridiculously high scoring game, 423 to 518. The year before it was 122 to 118. So that's, you know, pretty low scoring. The year before that, very high scoring. The year before that, low scoring. So I don't really know what we're going to get. And then I'm thinking about matchups. Macho O'Hanlon and TJ Reid, it's like they're, of course, going to be holding hands throughout this game. They always are, going back a number of years, assuming both are fully fit. And I'm wondering then at the other end, if Conor MacDonald has been picked up by Hugh Lawler, which I would expect to be the case, who is actually going to go in and out with Lee Chin, do you reckon?
Oh, great question. Who's the most likely to track him?
I'm wondering, because physically you have to be able to keep with him. And Shane Murphy's having a brilliant first season, and he is good in the air. Might it be asking a little bit too much at this moment in time? Like David Blanchfield, do they think he could keep with him in a straight line sprinter, you know, when he's careering through on goal?
I don't think it'll be Shane Murphy, just based on he was kind of pulled off early enough in the second half. The last he hit a bad enough wide going into the far end, the clubhouse end, and he was pulled off a couple of minutes later. It would be someone who's coming in maybe a better vein of form, should we say, from last weekend. I wouldn't be that surprised if it was Blanchfield. Paddy Deegan's only coming back from the knock. Didn't he have a thumb injury? And you're putting him in against someone who you're going to have your full capabilities about you to go. Like Hugh Lawler will probably be the ideal choice. But like, Chin will definitely take him away from the square.
And Mikey Butler, as Richard Hogan is saying there, that seems an obvious matchup with Rory O'Connor. And a lot of those players seem to rotate a little bit. Maybe not so much Conor MacDonald, which is why I feel like because he's so good in the air. Like you could put Tommy Walsh on him and send Hugh Lawler out the field, but I think you have to have your main man back minding the square, especially against someone who's good in the air. So that's why I think this is an interesting one. How does Derek Lynn go about tying down Lee Chin?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one from Rossiter's point of view, as in how do we really make them? How do we really ask them the question? How do we
make it awkward for them?
Yeah, where do we put Chin that will make it really, really awkward? And I said about David Blanchfield there. Blanchfield he's a defender first and foremost, but he's a very good attacker as well, and very good going forward. And as somebody said to me, he loves to take the leather off the ball every time he strikes it. He very rarely taps the ball. He usually absolutely melts it. How would he go in the role of, okay, you're defender first, and number one is stopping this lad who is unstoppable at the minute. Like Paddy Deegan likes to get on the ball and likes to be a creator as well. So maybe there are options that aren't that plentiful. Who are we leaving out here? Is there somebody we're leaving out?
Well, could you bring Mikey Carey back from midfield? Because you think athletically he's got as good as chances anyway. Now, I don't know if he's back to his 2022 form just yet, but it's an option. And he's played wing back, so I don't think this would be alien to him. And, with plenty of comments coming in, but I'd be interested to know what would people make of that.
The fact he has the game under his belt from the Dublin game, he should be sharper. He'd match up well.
He wasn't really in the game though, was he?
No, but just he went off when he went off in the closing minutes, and Kilkenny finished with 14 against Antrim the first day. He hasn't played that much hurling the last couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if they just plot Chin in at 11 and maybe force Paddy Deegan to mark him, or force them. Yeah, and then you're taking away a lot of kind of creativity from who puts Kilkenny on the front foot a lot of the time. Deegan a lot of the time, or he's the player that they're looking for. But like Chin is in that sort of form where there can't be any cloud about hanging over who's going to track him. Someone has to track him and go toe to toe with him. And even if someone does go toe to toe with him, they're in his shorts, that's not to say that he won't catch a ball over their head and put it over the bar anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know who's going to win that game? Really hard to call.
Yeah, tough game to call. I wouldn't be blown away with how Kilkenny are playing at the minute. Far from it. They did well.
Will we be windy and say a draw? The two of us be windy?
They drew in 19. There's a score between them in 17, 18. Went extra time. Drew in 2021, didn't they, in Croke Park? Yeah, Jesus. I have to say I would not be blown away with Kilkenny's form at the minute. And they are true. Wexford have more to play for. Like I'll tell you something. Like, it'd be amazing if there's not one, if not two draws this weekend. It's just a matter of picking the right games, and all Cork people will be hoping it's not Waterford, Limerick. Jeez, I'd be finding it very, very hard to put my head in the block there. Being honest with you.
Do you know what? I want to bring this up before I forgot. Oh wait, sorry. Let me just see if I can get this right. So this was a tweet from Dennis Hurley of the Echo, who had actually a Tipcast last week, and he was talking about the Cork bench, that every one of them is something. Not that it matters much. And I replied that it would put the fear, oh God, in Tipperary. But anyway, which is a bit crap.
That's the Tip under 20s, is it?
That's the Cork under 20
under 20s,
bench.
yeah.
Everyone is something, O'Shea, O'Sullivan, O'Leary, or whatever, O'Connell. But much ado about nothing, that really, but I had to bring it up. Come here, the Dublin against Galway game, those two teams hate each other, or certainly over the last 10, 12, 15 years, they have hated each other. I think it's going to be a really physical game, and it's brilliant that it's more or less a straight shootout to see who goes through.
Yeah, that's been the case. It was the case in 19. It was the case in 22. It was the case in 23, and it'll be the case again. And it was interesting just listen to Henry on Galway Bay FM, and just saying that he always thought it would come down to this, and he said that the talk around the Leinster Championship and its lack of competitiveness was very disrespectful, and that there was all the talk was about Munster. But I can totally get that.
It's more that the quality level isn't as high as Munster, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah, like at the minute, you would say that Munster is a step or potentially 2 steps ahead. Well, I wouldn't get lulled into the fact there will still be a Leinster team that will have a big say or potentially get to an All-Ireland final. That's generally what's happened for the last good while. I wouldn't get totally hoodwinked by the quality in Munster, just because, and as well as that, they're playing so many attritional games in a row that it could be ripe for the picking. Like Clare have been in semi-finals for the last couple of years, maybe like Limerick were in 19 as well. But it's just a matter of who that team is going to be. You'd probably think Kilkenny are the most likely traditionally, but they are definitely not lighting it up at the minute. Galway have not been lighting it up at all. They finished strong, obviously, against Antrim the last day. Like this is a huge game. This is a huge game for Henry. It's a huge game for, you'd say, the bulk of the class of 2017 as well. Like is this it? Is this it if they're beaten? Is it it for potentially 2 or 3 of them? I would say it probably is. Like, is Johnny Glynn going to commit to another season at Galway? I'd be very, very surprised if he is. David Burke is 34. Dottie Burke is early 30s. Joe Cooney is early 30s. Conor Cooney is early 30s. Gerard McInerney is early 30s. Pádraig Mannion is not far off. Cathal Mannion's fitness is going to be huge because he'd been playing great stuff before he picked up that knock. His availability to me could swing the game because he's a 3 or 4 pointer, someone that will just pop up and get scores. I thought it was a glorious opportunity for the Dubs last Saturday in Parnell Park, and I think this is a serious opportunity. And Donoghue showed that he had Dublin at the perfect pitch against Galway last year. They were 12 up at one stage. He knows he's going to know Galway inside out. He's going to know all their weaknesses, potential areas to get at them. It's a matter of whether Dublin can carry it out, and I think they'll carry it out to a fair degree, but it's going to be in that closing couple of minutes again.
Occasionally against someone like Cork, teams with brilliant speed and stuff like that, the odd time Cork or Dublin get pasted, but a lot of the time, and especially in Leinster, they do perform the odd non-performance against Kilkenny, to be fair, but generally they are competing very, very strongly with these teams. It's just that extra bit of quality at the top end of the pitch. And, it comes down to lads who are playing Gaelic football for Dublin instead of hurling. That's where they're missing out on those lads. But even we saw it last night with the under-20s, just that little bit of composure in front of the post when the game is there to be turned. And I do believe the game was there to be turned, just wrong options and stuff like that from the odd player. I mean, the heat of the occasion and all that kind of stuff. I think Shane O'Brien's done brilliantly with that team. But I just wonder, will they get down to the last few minutes? And again, will it be a case that the game just slips a little bit? Will, the absence of Keane O'Sullivan, will that catch up with him this weekend as well? Would he have buried a goal when his hamstring went against him the other day rather than flicking it over the bar? Yeah, I'm just a little bit concerned that that's what will catch Dublin out this weekend. Because I don't think, like, the way you're talking, it sounds like you think Galway are almost trending downwards, that this could be the final kick of this team. And that's not to say there'll be retirements en masse, but like it feels like that team is there to be got. There's a huge amount of pressure on the manager to deliver. He's not the only manager going out this weekend with that pressure. There was 4 red cards when they met in the league earlier this year. I think it's going to be an unbelievably physical game, but I just think that probably Galway have 1 or 2 more players who can put the ball over the bar and in the net than Dublin have.
Yeah, that would probably be what I'm coming out at the end. I wouldn't have a hell of a lot of faith in Galway at the minute. I do think they're trending downwards, but all of a sudden you get a result and you're trending upwards. But then, like, in the heel of the hunt and everything has happened, and like the Antrim win against Wexford, the Carlow draw against Kilkenny, it could easily just end up as a Kilkenny Galway final again, despite all sorts of theatrics along the way. And like I think Galway could easily end up out of the championship this weekend, but I think if they get to a Leinster final, I think they'll win it. I just think that's the way, and I think they could potentially get to an All-Ireland final if they get over this weekend. And that's just, they could win. I think if they get to the Leinster final, they'll win it. I think they'll end up in the semi-final. They'll potentially avoid Limerick and have a better chance of getting to a final than they've had since 2018. But that's just, there's so much on the line this weekend. You just need to survive. And imagine just flipping back to Waterford for a second. Like, imagine Waterford aren't in the championship come 6 o'clock on Sunday after the hurling they've played. It'd be very like Cork last year, and it'll come back to the Tipp game. The Tipp game will haunt them when you look at what Limerick beat them by and what Cork beat them by, and that would be a big regret. And because come 6 o'clock on Sunday, Limerick could potentially be out of the championship, and the All-Ireland's anybody's. Galway would fancy their chances. Kilkenny would fancy their chances. Waterford, Clare, Cork all fancy their chances then. Do you know what I mean? That's why it's just the moving parts this weekend make it so interesting. It's fascinating. It's just because anything can happen.
Yeah, and it's mad, like a comment here from Crackety Ash, All-Ireland finalists drawing with Carlow. I'm not buying this Leinster story entirely, that's fair enough, but Carlow this weekend, they've gone through a season where they've drawn with Kilkenny, but obviously they've had a couple of tough games as well. Now, and they performed very well against Dublin and, moral victory and all that, they won't want to hear it, but that sort of stuff. And Antrim, who have been beaten from pillar to post in a couple of games, very good in the first half against Galway, red card, probably turned things and they fell apart against Galway. Absolutely annihilated by Kilkenny the first day out, but they've beaten Wexford. I mean, the form lines are, you cannot draw a straight line in terms of form lines coming into this game. And I don't know, the game is on in Corrigan Park. Maybe that's going to be decisive. You will have a raucous home support behind them there, but like I find it so difficult to call this game.
Yeah, sure. It's a massive game. It's the same as Westmeath playing Antrim last year. Westmeath got a result and Antrim had the draw against Dublin. But one team that has caused, has really kind of lit the Leinster Championship on fire this year. One of them is going to be playing McDonagh Cup Hurling next year, and that's the nature of it, and that's kind of how ruthless it is. And I know we talked about having buffers for teams that are coming up, but that's what the jeopardy makes it so interesting this weekend. You have 5 games where there's something really, really tangible taking place in the All-Ireland Championship. It is a very, very difficult game to call, but I think I'm not surprised there was Carlow weren't able to get to the same levels as the Kilkenny game. I'm not, when they played Wexford, I'm not saying that they eased off, on purpose or anything against Wexford. Far from it. But this is such a huge game. Same with Antrim as well. I'd be expecting Antrim to perform at a better level than they did last weekend. This weekend, same with Carlow, because they won't have said this publicly, maybe. But the two managers planning would have been viewed as their most important game at the start of the year when the fixture, and that's just the nature of it, because everything will be judged. Like Carlow's result against Kilkenny is completely irrelevant if they're relegated from the Leinster Championship. Antrim's win against Wexford is completely irrelevant if they don't win this fixture. So I would be expecting the two of them to perform to a very high level. I probably would be leaning towards Antrim, just because the fact it's on home soil and everything that kind of comes with that, and the fact that they've generally been a really consistent force there. Even brought Galway down the stretch last weekend, while maybe not performing up to the level that you'd normally associate with them.
Jeez, the comments are absolutely flying in today. A lot about Tipperary losing, and that they have the summer now for farming, and somebody saying that they'd lose at that as well, and then someone saying you'd need a spine for the farming too. And by God, the comments are absolutely flying in. But just to finish off on Antrim there, they were in this situation last year and they found a way over the line, and obviously Westmeath paid the price for that. And I just look at some of the classy players that you've got on both sides. James McNaughton, Shan Elliott was so good that a couple of games ago against Wexford. At the other side, you've obviously got Mouse Kavanagh. You've got a lot of players that are in good form for Carlow there.
Chris Nolan.
Yeah, what's the centre back's name?
Kevin McDonald. Yeah,
Kevin McDonald. Sorry, I was thinking, is it Chris? No, Kevin. So, I mean, you've got a lot of quality on both sides. I think they're going to be tasty fixtures. Now, I'll just quickly read out the fixtures in Joe McDonagh before we talk to Keane Johnson about football. Kerry against Meath, Down against Offaly, and Westmeath are against Laois. But we already know that it's going to be a Laois-Offaly final. So would you expect to see much change teams for both those counties?
Oh, completely, yeah. Completely. Like, this is where lads that haven't been able to get into squads have to be given a chance this weekend. Just quickly, Shane, I'm just going to fly down through the referees, because I know people are always wondering. It's something we probably don't talk about enough. Galway Dublin is Colm Lyons. Antrim Carlow is James Owens. Kilkenny Wexford is Liam Gordon. Limerick Waterford is Michael Kendi, and Tipp Clare is Johnny Murphy. So just because maybe it's probably something we should focus a little bit more on, because the referee does obviously have a big bearing on how a game is played and refereed, and their style can kind of go against maybe the style of a certain team if they clamp down on certain things. So just on the McDonagh, it's mad to think that the final round they're basically all dead rubbers. The one interest, and I thought there might be something on the line when they did play, but Trevor Fletcher been involved as coach with Down, and Offaly playing Down this weekend is obviously going to be very, it would be more interesting if there was something on the line, shall we say, but still an interesting side note yet.
Yeah, was it Down who stitched G up there a few years ago? Was that in the Christy ring?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So
was that penalties?
That was penalties, yeah. That was penalties, yeah. Just thankfully things have moved on a bit since then, and we've two finals to look forward to.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, delighted to say we're joined now by Cian Johnson. Cian, big weekend of football coming. Donegal, Tyrone, Armagh, Westmeath, Louth, Meath, Dublin, Roscommon. But Mayo calling for a neutral venue against Dublin, and that is not Croke Park, because Dublin have nominated Croke Park as their home venue for one of their other fixtures. Do you agree with them there that they should, and should this be taken out of their hands in the first place to ensure that this doesn't happen?
Yeah, I'm just happy you didn't start off with
Yeah, how did you not start off with Derry will wallop God? I was waiting for it.
I was trying to spare your blushes, Cian. We've all been there. We make a prediction. He predicted that Derry would hammer Galway last week. Didn't pan out. But hey, I've been there as well, Cian.
I have a fattered head list here all week, and now we move on to liars. No, but look, I don't know. Like, first of all, I don't have an X account, so if you want to abuse me, you're gonna have to send me a letter or something. All I've seen is people have sent me stuff or whatever, but some people are saying I have something against Galway. Like, I'm from Offaly, I couldn't be any more neutral. Like, I'm a fan of Gaelic football. I don't care who wins the All Ireland, like, or who. And even a few weeks ago, Shane, I was saying to you that Galway have the second best front eight outside of Dublin. Like, so people obviously aren't really listening to the podcast. But like, even boys on GA Go before the game, Mark O'Shea, Paddy Andrews, Michael Murphy, lads who know an awful lot more about football than me, all back in Derry big time as well. So yeah.
Hey, look, I'm getting a comment here from John Noonan. I generally don't like Shane's bias. It's not doing him any favours. Apparently, I'm biased. I have it in for everyone except Tipp and to some degree Dublin.
Well, we're all against Limerick, apparently. We're always saying negative things about Limerick, apparently, even though we say that all the best games involve Limerick, and that they're one of the best teams of all time, if not the best. So listen, Cian, at least you're better off. Not having the social media account is definitely a help anyway. I can tell you that in this instance.
Sure, look, there's enough punditry out there of lads doing the 4-iron up the middle of the fairway or whatever. You might as well throw your neck on the line. If you get it wrong, you get it wrong.
Exactly.
Well, look, just this topic about Mayo and trying to make sure that their neutral game against Dublin isn't at Croke Park. I mean, surely this is something that shouldn't be dragging on, Cian. Like, it's ridiculous at this stage.
Yeah, and it's even mad the way like they were selling the tickets for the 3 games, and you don't know where or when the last game is going to be, even for fans and that. But yeah, I don't know. Like, where would you nominate like a venue that could hold this crowd and that would be available? Like that's
pre-planning for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, surely this sort of stuff, as soon as the draw is made, they should be sort of planning for that.
Yeah, because surely Mayo would bring huge numbers, like, and obviously Dublin would as well. I don't know, but yeah, like definitely give Mayo a better chance of winning the game. First off, like, like we were saying there, like what other competition would you let the best team play every game at home? And it's meant to be a neutral venue. Dublin played their neutral game there last year, and even the Super 8s ones were all neutral as well. So yeah, I definitely be up for moving it, but geez, I don't know where. Like, where would you even?
What do you think, Verney? Would you play it in Galway? Would you play it in Park Tailteann?
Neutral. Park Tailteann definitely not. There's renovations going on there. Yeah. Tullamore maybe. Would it hold it? I'm not sure. Would Portlaoise hold it? Thurles is definitely not neutral anyway, is it? It's way too Clonus maybe. Yeah. I don't know. It's a mad one though, because there will be a big crowd. Mayo are going to bring a big crowd. Dublin are going to bring a bigger crowd than normal, just because it's Mayo as well. And this is going to be their one game on the road, isn't it, as well? So, one second now. They're playing. Is this Dublin's one game on the road in the All Ireland series, or is there another one already?
Dublin have Roscommon at home Saturday. Then they've Cavan in Breffni Park in the second round. Yeah,
but this will be the one. If fans are going to travel to one of their All Ireland series games, this will be the one. So you're going to need. Jesus, bringing Dublin over. I wouldn't say, maybe it is neutral. I don't know. I leave this to the CCCC or whatever they're called.
Hey, John Noonan's having a pop at you now. Get a haircut, Verney, and give your local community a few pound. How many times do you get a cut, lad? 4 or 5 times a year?
I'd say 4, 5 max. 5 on a good year, maybe on a warm year.
Cian, would you be going for the old high fade every few weeks? You would, of course.
Yeah, 0 back inside. Look, the price of haircuts these days, Verney, I don't blame you.
There you go, lads. There you go. I'm still pretending it's COVID times and just have to let it grow.
Look, Keane, like what's the tastiest fixture in round one this weekend? Obviously, there was 4 fixtures last weekend, 4 this weekend.
Probably Donegal, Tyrone, maybe. Donegal at home. I don't know. Like, I think Tyrone should have won this game a month ago. The Ulster semi-final, like, they were a point up going down the stretch. Niall Morgan will still probably be kicking himself. He had a whirly of a game, but he just spilled a ball towards the end, and Brendan McCool picked it up and got the equaliser. Like, Tyrone done so much right that day. Like, they took away a lot of Donegal's weapons that they used against Derry, like their long kick out. They didn't give them counter attacks. They done a really good man marking job in Ryan McHugh. So I don't know, like, I suppose there's no better man than Jim McGuinness to get a team up again, but is it going to be hard to get Donegal up for this? You know, like, they'll never win a harder Ulster with them 3 games, the extra times and the penalties. I'd say, like, if you're realistically, if you're going to win the All-Ireland, you're probably going to have to top your group to avoid a preliminary quarter-final and playing 3 weekends in a row. So I'd imagine they have to be up for it, but I don't know, is it hard after having such a high a couple of weeks, like Tyrone are waiting in the long grass for them? It's hard to know.
You know, when you see people talking about what's going on with Derry and overtraining and, you know, is it working with Mickey Hart and all that kind of stuff, are you buying into it when you see, I know we were joking about the Galway-Derry result. How much of that do you put down to Galway and how much of it is down to Derry, and is it working with Hart?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be writing off Derry, like, based off that. I know they've had 2 losses, but I think they have enough credit in the bank over the last 2 years to give them a bit more leeway. Even in that game, like, obviously, like, the red card ruined the game. Like, it was 4-4 after 20 minutes, and, like, that was just a stupid act from McKinless. But, like, even after that, like, it was 1-13 to 13 points with about 10 minutes left, and Shane McGuigan gets the ball edge of the square, drives it straight at Conor Gleeson. Like, you know, if you'd offered that Mickey Hart that after going down to 14 men, he probably would have taken it. So I don't think there was a whole pile wrong. Even if you look at a lot of the metrics around the game, like the kickouts won, the shots won, the possession, a lot of it was very even. And, like, obviously Cormac had to go off, unfortunately, but Walsh was reasonably quiet, and so was Finnerty. So I think Derry didn't do too much wrong. I know it looks like the world is falling in them at the minute, but I think there has to be maybe some questions around the panel and the amount of injuries they're getting and lads walking away from the panel compared to under Rory Gallagher. Like, I can't remember too many injuries under Rory Gallagher. I think the same team nearly played every league game, every championship game. And you look now, like, Conor Doherty's gone, Owen McAvoy, McGrogan obviously done his cruciate. That's unfortunate, but is it Matthew Downey and Conlon McGuckian had left the panel after the league? So there's 2 down. Cormac Murphy is injured as well. So I don't know where it's all after coming from. I know their Derry strength and conditioning coach had left from last year. He went to work with New Zealand Rugby. So I don't know, like, nobody was talking about that at the start of the year, but it's when the team starts losing, the injuries start piling up, that's maybe something that comes into it. But I think even if you look at Derry's bench there at the weekend, Shea Downey had 10 appearances for Derry. He was on the bench. After that, you're looking at minutes, or you're looking at players who had never played for Derry before. So all of a sudden, like, the depth we were talking about after the league final has disappeared nearly overnight. So, yeah, definitely huge question marks around them, and they've probably fallen back in the pecking order, yeah.
Just on that, Cat O'Kane did a piece. He just said for 3 years under Rory Gallagher, nobody got injured and nobody got sent off. Galway didn't end Derry's summer, but Saturdays left the crack showing. It is interesting, like, as you say there, maybe this change in S&C, because no 2 S&C coaches are the same, and they tend to maybe have different philosophies. Maybe they're trained a bit different. I don't know. Maybe it's just a bit of freak luck as well. McAvoy picked up a hamstring injury. McGrogan's a cruciate. Like, that can happen kind of to anyone. But they're behind the 8 ball a small bit here. Like, but you'd be very surprised if they don't still get out with the way the groups are set up. They just need to basically win 1 game essentially, and they're going to be through or thereabouts.
And Keane, I was going to ask you then about Dublin against Roscommon. I think, you know, when I think historically of Dublin and Roscommon games, I think of, you know, more often than not in the last few years, hammerings. Like 2018, it was 424 to 216. 2019, 226 to 14. But last year they actually drew in an All-Ireland round robin game. So I don't think Roscommon will be coming into this thinking we're cannon fodder.
No, absolutely not. And I've never really got that with Roscommon, that they were always able to put it up to Galway, Mayo and Connacht, but when they got to Croke Park to maybe a Dublin or a bigger team, they always got wiped. And maybe you can put that down to the bigger teams being more up for the All-Ireland quarter-final or whatever, but I don't know. I think Roscommon were nearly in a better spot for this fixture 12 months ago. I don't know. I haven't seen much maybe in the league this year or even in their game against Mayo to suggest they're progressing. I don't know. I just think they're constantly going back to short kickouts and then recycling the ball and going back to the goalkeeper. I just think like it's an effective tactic, and we've seen Louth do it effectively against Dublin in the Leinster final. But I just think to get the best out of your forwards and to even score goals, like you're never going to score a goal if you keep going short in your kick out. And I think if you look at like Enda Smith, Donny Smith, Diarmuid Murtagh, Ben O'Carroll, Dara Craig, like there's good forwards to see anywhere. And I think they need a fast early ball. And I just think like as a forward, if you're standing there and the kick out goes long, like you're thinking like I'm in the game here. I'm one play away. I'm one kick pass away from getting the ball. Whereas if it's shipped to the corner back, you're like, I mightn't see the ball for 3 or 4 minutes. So I don't know. I think like the biggest thing I suppose I'd like to see from Dublin this weekend is how they counteract when Roscommon play the keep ball, because they're going to do it. And Louth really use this tactic efficiently against them. And I don't know what the solution is. And I've said it before. I think it's too easy to keep the ball in football. I just think it's the skill level is very low to just step to the side and hand pass it to someone. I just think like, in soccer there's offside, so you can squeeze the pitch and make a team, lose possession or whatever. Basketball, you've got a shot clock or you can't come back over halfway. American football, you've got 4 plays to make 10 yards or you have to kick the ball. I just think it's too easy, and I think the team that maybe comes up with a solution for this has a real chance of going far in the All-Ireland series, because it's happening in every single game. Kerry done it to Cork, Louth done it to Dublin. So I think that I don't know what the solution is, but I'm really fascinated to see if Dublin or Jim McGuinness or someone can come up with one.
It would involve surely an unbelievably high risk press of everybody.
Yeah.
And trying to swallow up an opposition as soon as they're anywhere in one half of the field, nearly trying to envelop them from all angles. And like one long kick and you could be, that could completely burst that open. So yeah, it's tough, because surely someone would have done it by now, Keane.
Yeah, that's it. But I was just thinking from a Dublin point of view, like if they're in their video analysis or whatever since the Louth game, they surely have to be saying to themselves like, we can't let this happen again. Like Louth burned up nearly half of the first half by just hand passing the ball around them. And I don't know, like it's all right saying let's go man to man, but it's never man to man when the goalkeeper's free. Like unless you bring your goalkeeper out. But then, like, you're thinking in a first half, like, why would you take the risk of bringing your own goalkeeper out to corner back? Like, you wouldn't. So I don't know if there is a solution, but I really think that the top teams are so good at keeping the ball now that there has to be some way you can crack it. Like, and I'm fascinated to see.
It's 40 years since Roscommon last even beat Dublin in the league. They've never beaten them in championship. This will be their 8th time meeting. There's been 1 draw, and Dublin have won the other 6 games. But just Louth Meath, I mean, traditionally this should be a fairly poisonous rivalry. I know from friends from college, from Louth, they always absolutely hated Meath, and this was before what happened in the 2010 Leinster final. Obviously, Joe Sheridan and the try and all that. But like, they were both in Division 2 of the league. They both finished on 6 points. Now, Meath beat Louth by 2 points that day when they did meet in the league. But I'm almost feeling like, and maybe rightly or wrongly, I'm almost starting to feel like, yeah, the way Louth have been going, I'd sort of be leaning towards them. Which way are you leaning?
Yeah, you would have to lean towards Louth. Like, I suppose Louth has cemented themselves as the second best team in Leinster over the last few years. Like, they've beaten all the other teams. They've got as close to Dublin as anyone. And like, you could be forgiven for leaning towards Louth. Like, anyone could, because like Meath didn't lay a glove on Dublin, and Louth got as close as anyone. So I don't know. I think in a scheme that Louth have nominated as their home venue for this game. So it'll be interesting to see like what Louth will do. Like Louth's game plan was so good against Dublin, but you're surely thinking like Louth would be saying to themselves like, we can beat Meath. We've better players than Meath. We'll just go at them. But I don't know. Is it a hard sell to players to say we're going to go with the same approach to Dublin that we will to Meath, even though we probably see ourselves as the same level or better? So that'll be interesting. But I think Meath, like, their season has been geared towards this All-Ireland series, like from the start of the year, because like as Tailteann winners, they had the safety net to know that they were going to be here regardless of their league form, and they knew they weren't going to beat Dublin. So like this is it for Meath. And even Colin O'Rourke has been saying all year about injuries, and he'd have a long-term approach because he knows this is when we need our players and just targeting this. So it'd be really interesting to see how Meath do, in not just this game, but across the group. And even in the Super 8s under Andy McEntee a few years ago, Meath gave as good as they got in all their games for 50 or 60 minutes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but you'd have to be leaning towards Louth by a couple of points.
And just then the Football Review Committee, and Jim Gavin is chairing this, and they're meeting with provincial councils at the moment. And some of the things being talked about are doubling the reward for long-range points, retaining a minimum of 3 players per team in each half of the field, and a clock/hooter. They're also being talked about as well. That's been reported. I see it in the Examiner there. But these are ideas that are nothing new either. Is there anything like, is any of this outside the box, or is, like, surely, like, how do you feel about you shouldn't be allowed to pass it back to the goalie? Now, I would put a little wrinkle there, inside your own 65, you shouldn't be allowed, because I like him joining the attack, I have to say, but I don't like the defensive negative side of it.
Yeah, because if you rule it out completely, like you take out what the likes of Niall Morgan is doing and what Rory Beggan has done in the past, like really positive impact on the game. So yeah, I'd agree with that. But there's actually one thing about the maybe keeping 3 players up, and even just like for the Donegal-Tyrone game this weekend, like Darren McCurry never got a sniff the last day against Donegal, and I was just thinking like the game just doesn't suit him. Like what's going to happen on Saturday? So I was just thinking, like, is McCurry going to be on the bench maybe for 50 minutes and then bring him in? And it's the same what's happening on the Donegal side with Paddy McBrearty. Like, he's not starting games now. He's only coming on for the last 20 minutes. And it's because, like, they don't have the athleticism for 70 minutes to keep getting run back the field. And, like, last week in the Kerry-Monaghan game, Conor McManus spent the whole game back in his own half tackling. Like, Tom O'Sullivan literally lined them up at one stage. And, like, Kerry clearly targeted and spoke about that. And, like, I've been calling for Cillian O'Connor to start for Mayo all year. He's quick 4 points from play the last day. But you're just thinking, like, if they're playing Dublin and Croke Park, will, like, Owen Merchant or John Small just run him back the field? And so, like, keeping the 3 players up, I think it should be a positive thing on the game, because you'll have players like that who will be able to play. Like, if you're a neutral tuning into Donegal-Tyrone, you don't want to see McCurry and McBrearty on the bench. So something like that I'd like to see, yeah. Yeah,
because, like, in hurling, you'd be thinking, if it was the same way, you'd be doing that to Patrick Horgan and, you know, TJ Reid. But luckily, the way hurling is, the fact that you can hit a ball 100 yards in the space of a couple of seconds, it means that the player can stay up high and get the breather, or can play 70 minutes. So you make a very good point there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, like, Cork have, like, Barris and Brian Hayes and, like, pace around them, and they're able to nearly compensate. But yeah, no, there's no hiding place in football. Like, it's just, you just have to be able to do them runs up and down. And, like obviously I'm biased, but I just hate that. Like, I hate just, you know, being targeted, just being ran back the field, and defender has no interest in getting involved in the play. Like, it's purely just you know, it's not good. It's not good for the game. Like, I don't think, anyway.
No. And else you want to touch on just before we finish up?
No, that's it. All good.
Yeah, and the Tailteann Cup at the weekend, we weren't chatting about anything from that that's impressed you or didn't?
No, I think the results have nearly gone as we planned. So I think the top seeds in all of them, Sligo, Fermanagh, Kildare and Down, all top in their groups. I think, look, Kildare and Down will have to be in the final, otherwise there'll be serious questions asked there. So yeah, I suppose there's a week off in the Tailteann now, and then it's the June bank holiday weekend. So yeah, no, look, it's hard. Look, football's kind of a slow burner nearly. It's always about the hurling now for the start, and then it kind of gets going. But yeah, no, it'll be interesting anyway to see this weekend. Hopefully I have a few less WhatsApp notifications.
Okay, well, look, great stuff, Cian. We'll chat again soon.
Cheers, Shane.
Okay, well, that's pretty much it for the show today. Just a reminder, if you want to get the audio podcast, patreon.com is the only place to get it /OurGame. Patreon.com/OurGame. Plenty of columns in there as well, especially from the GA in the past week or so. And as I said, it's the only place to get audio pods and coaching clinic stuff and so on and so forth. Otherwise, we'll see you all again next Monday.